Welcome, everyone, to Criminal Law. My name is Michael Sirota. I'm an associate professor at Loyola Law School and the director of the Criminal Justice Reform Lab. This semester, I'm going to be your guide as we explore the topic of substantive criminal law. This is the first lecture in a series of recordings that are a key component of this course. In the next recording, I'm going to more formally introduce you to the topic we'll be focusing on this semester. But first, I want to tell you a little bit about the class, my teaching goals, and the format we'll be using this semester. There's no need to take notes during this recording. Just sit back, relax, and listen as I tell you about the journey that lies ahead. Okay, so this semester, we're going to learn about the substantive criminal law. But what's that? Well, this is actually a pretty difficult question, which we'll explore in more depth later. For now, let's just say that the criminal law is the study of offenses committed against society. The idea is like this. Typically, someone who violates the criminal law has engaged in morally wrongful conduct, and that conduct has serious consequences, which go beyond the harm suffered by any particular victim. So people who commit crimes need to make amends with both victims and society at large. Punishment is usually an important part of that repair process. In the coming weeks, we'll be studying the rules, the principles, and the doctrines that make up the criminal law. We'll also be practicing how to apply them to different fact patterns and novel situations. In the process, we're going to explore big and important questions like, why do we criminalize certain kinds of conduct and punish people who engage in them? How do prosecutors prove that someone has actually committed a crime? How do defense attorneys protect their clients from those charges? And what punishments should be imposed for different kinds of wrongdoing? So fundamentally, this is a class about crime and punishment. But it's also a class about statutes, because most crimes and punishments are expressed through laws that have been enacted by legislatures, not made up by courts through case law. Given the criminal law's legislative focus, this semester, we're going to spend a lot of our time reading, understanding, and arguing about the meaning of statutes. We'll place our focus on state and federal criminal statutes as they exist in the real world. And we'll also pay particularly close attention to something called the Model Penal Code. That's a model code which many real-world criminal statutes are based on. By the end of the semester, I hope you'll be able to pick up a criminal statute in any jurisdiction and understand it. I want you to be able to make persuasive legal arguments where a statute's meaning is unclear. And I hope you'll be comfortable making persuasive policy arguments when you think a statute needs to be changed. This semester, we're also going to place a lot of focus on the criminal law's human stakes. The reality is that if you commit a crime in the United States, you can be separated from everything that you care about: your family, your friends, and your freedom. You can be placed in a cage for years or even decades. And those cages are truly horrific places, filled with violence, disease, and isolation. Every morning, around 2 million people wake up to these realities in a US prison. About twice as many people live their lives under some form of correctional supervision. And around 6 times as many people cycle in and out of our jails, our courtrooms, and our probation offices every year. The result is a country where 1 out of every 3 adults possesses a criminal record. That's a staggering statistic. But it also misses the fact that these costs are concentrated on the most vulnerable people in the United States. The poor, the underserved, and communities of color have all been particularly devastated by mass incarceration. This semester, we're going to discuss how we got here. And we're going to explore the criminal law's disparate impact on people of color. In the process, we're going to learn about the influence that bias has on criminal enforcement. Okay, so that's a bit about the curriculum. Now I want to talk to you about my own outlook on the criminal law. Because the reality is that every professor brings an angle to the courses they teach. Mine can be summarized in one word: perspective. Before becoming a professor, I worked for 3 different federal judges and then spent many years drafting criminal statutes and making policy recommendations in Washington, D.C. I served as the chief legislative counsel for a non-political government agency, and it was an eye-opening experience. For 7 years, I worked closely with prosecutors, defense attorneys, legislators, judges, and academics on developing a new criminal code for the District of Columbia. Through that process, I came to see how each of these actors view the law differently, how they possess different goals, and how they confront different challenges. Understanding these differences helps us make sense of the law that we have. And it can also help us move the law in the direction we want by making us more effective advocates. And that matters, because no matter what shape your career takes, the ability to persuade others is going to be an important part of it. So this semester, we're going to learn about the different perspectives that exist within the criminal law. And we're going to practice how to use these perspectives to become more effective advocates through a variety of role-playing exercises, advocacy simulations, and practice problems. But for all this to work, I need you to partner with me on building a good classroom environment, one filled with sensitivity, respect, and empathy. The criminal law is an emotionally challenging topic filled with heavy stuff like human suffering, violence, and racism. And law school is an emotionally challenging time for anyone, but particularly for those of you who have to work full-time jobs or have families to support. The reality is that you have no idea what anyone is going through in their personal lives. So for example, a few years ago, I lost my mom in a freak accident. Like, she was here one day, healthy and thriving, and then gone the next. This was a really traumatic experience, and it led to some challenging days at work. But I was fortunate to work in a supportive and kind environment, and that made it possible for me to continue writing criminal laws during a really difficult time. I've had former students who've dealt with a lot worse and who were only able to stay in law school because of the support of their classmates. So this semester, please join me in creating a community of mutual kindness and support. Our classroom is going to be a place where students know that all perspectives are welcome and where everyone feels safe and respected. Okay, so that's a brief overview of the class. Now I want to tell you about the topics that we're going to be covering this semester. We're going to travel through 5 main modules. The first, which will begin at the end of this lecture, is on the foundations of criminal law. During that module, we'll explore what criminal law is and where it comes from. We'll discuss the primary justifications for punishment. We'll learn how to argue for different sentences in individual cases. And we'll learn how to interpret criminal statutes. Our next module is going to be on the elements of liability. This is where the black letter portion of the class begins. During this second module, we'll focus on 5 main general requirements of criminal liability. First, a voluntary act or omission. Second, social harm. Third, the guilty mind. Fourth, causation. And fifth, concurrence. In the process of learning about these general requirements, we'll briefly encounter many offenses. Then in the third module, we'll do a deep dive into one offense in particular, homicide. During this module, we'll sharpen our understanding of the elements of liability by carefully studying murder, manslaughter, and the many shades of each form of homicide employed across the criminal law. From there, we'll move on to the fourth module, which is on inchoate crimes. As we'll discuss, inchoate is a fancy legal term for unrealized. So during this module, we're going to learn how the law holds people who intend to do harm but fail to succeed criminally liable for their actions. In the process, we'll focus on the most common forms of inchoate liability: attempt, conspiracy, and solicitation. We'll also discuss the unique challenges presented by general inchoate crimes. Then, in the 5th and final module, we'll cover the fascinating topic of accomplice liability, or how to hold one person accountable for another person's crimes. Although, as we'll soon learn, criminal law is all about individual responsibility, sometimes the criminal law also views the helpers and encouragers of crimes as though they did the bad thing themselves. This is a really important area of law, which has significant consequences for people who play an indirect role in criminal activity. So, before you try to hire someone to get rid of your annoying criminal law professor, you might want to wait until at least the end of the semester. Okay, so throughout these modules, we'll also be spending quite a bit of time focusing on exam preparation. This is something I always wish professors did when I was in law school. Because for me, preparing for a final takes time. A lot of review, repetition, and practice. And there's usually so much material covered in class that work can't happen until the very end. And that makes life stressful, even for those of you who are able to master the material by the time the exam rolls around. Plus, everyone wants to earn high marks on the exam, but mastering the material is only a part of that. Knowing how to write a good exam is also really important. But it's not obvious how to do that, and it's rarely taught in any class. So in my class, we're going to spend a lot of time preparing for the exam. It's part of my curriculum. Okay, so that's an overview of where we're heading this semester. Now, I want to say a few words about the class format we'll use to get there. First, you're part of Loyola's nationally acclaimed evening program. Congratulations! As you've already experienced, this evening program is now being conducted in an innovative, hybrid fashion. With a couple of exceptions, this means that we're only going to be meeting in person once a week in the evenings. Please know that I view this time together as sacred. I know many of you have full-time jobs or families, and everyone sacrifices a lot to commute to Loyola's downtown campus every evening. Your sacrifice and commitment to legal education is one of the main reasons I decided to teach in the hybrid JD program. And it's also why I want to make sure we make the most of our time together. There's some aspects of a law school class, like lecturing, that can be accomplished at least as effectively in a virtual format, and even more conveniently on your own time. Then there are some things, like discussion, debate, and practice exercises, that are best accomplished together in a physical classroom. That's why I've chosen to flip the classroom. This means that just about all lecturing this semester will happen through asynchronous video recordings like this one. I've recorded these lectures with a great team at the new media room at LMU's main campus. These recordings should provide you with everything you get in the lecture portion of a normal in-person class, but on your own time. And because you're watching the videos, we can devote all of our in-class time together to active learning. You know, the fun stuff, like practice problems, advocacy exercises, and debate. So another benefit of the flipped classroom is that there won't be an hour-long Zoom meeting for your remote class night during the week. In lieu of mandatory virtual class time on Wednesday, I'm going to hold optional office hours during that slot to answer any questions you might have about the class, the practice of criminal law, or law school in general. But again, these office hours will be optional. You can decide whether you want to attend them on any given week. I just want to reiterate that the structure for this class is a bit different than for your other hybrid classes. There's more videos to watch, but no mandatory remote class time. I happen to think that this kind of flipped classroom is the future of legal education. When the hybrid format's done right, it should be able to offer students something better than what even full-time in-person instruction can achieve. However, and this is critical, the success of a flipped classroom depends on your active participation. For this class to work, you really do have to make sure that the out-of-class work gets done before each and every class. All the details on that work are addressed in the syllabus. So here, I'm just going to flag some key points. There are 3 main things to do outside of class for every topic. First, watch the lecture on each topic. Then, do the assigned reading on the topic. And then, do the practice problems assigned for that topic. Most in-person class sessions will cover 2 topics. So before most in-person class sessions, there will typically be 2 lectures to watch, 2 sets of reading, and 2 sets of practice problems. Our in-person class sessions will typically focus on the reading and practice problems, picking up right where the lectures left off. I've structured our in-person time together in a way that assumes everyone has carefully listened to lectures. Generally speaking, the first half of our in-person classes will be devoted to the first topic. Then, after a short break, the second half of class will be devoted to the second topic. Put this all together, and you end up with 1 week or 2 class sessions of traditional law school being condensed into each of our roughly 15 in-person classes over the course of the semester. The syllabus carefully spells all this out in greater detail. For now, I just want you to keep in mind the big picture. Please watch the lecture, then do the reading, and then try the practice problems for every topic before class. Your showing up in this way is a critical piece of your success. And it's also a critical piece of our success together as a community of learners. We really do need to show up for one another to make our in-person time as meaningful and engaging as possible. Sound good? I hope so. That said, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to shoot me an email, or even better, raise a question during our first class. As you'll see, I love answering questions. In the meantime, it's now time to begin this semester's journey into substantive criminal law. Please watch the next recording in this series, which is the first lecture in this class entitled Introducing the Criminal Law.